So both AJ and Adam were obviously very involved in SIMM for multiple years, and just great people, and looking forward to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, so we can take it from there. So those of you that don't know me, I'm sure most of you on here know who I am. I'm Adam Talmadge. I graduated in 2018 and got my MBA in 2019. I was previously the general manager of SIMM and also the energy hedge fund manager for a period of time. I'm from Rochester, New York, and currently I'm a client service administrator at Simon Quick. I joined in 2019, so I'm relatively new.
My name is AJ Loughry, guys. I'm also the class of 2018, but I did not stay to get my master's. I was the equity fund manager our senior year. I'm from Avon, New York, which is right outside of Rochester, and I am an investment research analyst at the firm. And I started right after graduation in July of 2018. But to get us kicked off, so I'll kind of just briefly introduce Simon Quick to you guys. So Simon Quick is a wealth management firm based out of Morristown, New Jersey, and we manage about $4.5 billion of client assets. And when I say wealth management firm, we'll kind of delve into more specifics, but really broadly, we're responsible for managing all of the assets of our clients. And that really expands into a lot of different ways. Past just the normal or what you would think of, I guess, investment management and financial planning. We also do things like tax planning, helping clients avoid taxes, or having high tax bills, estate planning if they're trying to pass on their wealth to future generations, and just a variety of things that we'll touch on. But really just that full service wealth management is kind of how you think about it. We're based, like I said, we're based out of Morristown, New Jersey, which is 20 miles or so west of New York, the city. But we also have offices in New York City, in Denver, LA, and Chattanooga, Tennessee, although the vast majority of our employees are based out of Morristown and New York. We were founded by a Bonnie alum, actually, Les Quick. So you might recognize the name from the Quick Art Center. But Les founded the company in the early 2000s. He decided to found the company because in the late 90s, he sold his family business, Quick and Riley, to Bank of America, and was now sitting on a lot of liquid capital, and was trying to find somebody who would manage his wealth for him. And what he was found from looking throughout the industry is that firms weren't really aligned to be in the best interest of the clients. This was kind of before the fiduciary standard was maybe as mainstream as it is now. And he was really trying to find somebody who would put him first and not just be pushing products to him to make commission or things like that. So he established the firm. Kind of with that philosophy, and really just the way we do that is we only bill on client assets. We don't get commission for selling things to our clients or different type of ways like that. It's just strictly based off of what kind of assets they have in the service that we do for them.
Yeah, so as you can see, Les Quick pictured there, he's on the far left, as you would all know. So pretty much we have 60 employees at Simon Quick. How we sort of got integrated with the firm is interesting. For those of you that don't know, Les Quick graduated in 1975. I happen to know this because my mom also graduated from Bonaventure in 1975. So I was able to use that connection with him. And my freshman year, I talked to Les a little bit. I didn't know exactly what he did. But come my junior year, I reached out to Les and asked him for some contacts possibly in the New York City area. I thought I wanted to live and work in the city and get an internship there. And it ended up that he said, I don't really have many contacts in the city anymore, but you should apply to my firm. So I ended up applying to Simon Quick, and I interned there in the summer of 2017. It was an awesome experience. The interview process was really fun, I would say, which you can't always say about interview processes. There was really an evident Bonnie's type culture where everybody was so nice. They even said that there was kind of an unspoken no client a-hole policy. Everybody's just a nice person to deal with. And really that's exactly how my internship experience was. We have a very flat hierarchy. So if you're talking to a partner or our CIO or CFO, they're not going to treat you any differently than a tenured employee. And that was something that I really took away from my internship and kind of brought back with me to school. So after that, my senior year, both of our senior years, I knew I was getting my MBA, so I wasn't applying for jobs. But I saw that there was a job opening on the research side, and I knew AJ was interested in that. So I recommended AJ apply for it. And I mean, the rest is history. AJ got the job. He's probably going to talk about it a little bit more. But pretty much he helped me come back to the company and find the role that I'm currently in right now.
Yeah, and I was kind of expand on that too. As far as like the culture and everything goes. So we're like a small business, right? So we have under 60 employees. So like when Adam kind of talks about that, we have like this real like flat structure and a team oriented kind of approach. Like I can't really like understate that, because like at a small company, like you really are expected to kind of put on different hats than maybe just like what your primary role is. And for me, I thought that was actually like really awesome, because like we have a lot of like task forces, what we call them at the firm, which are like spin-offs or like little groups that we have of the employees to do like different type of functions. So for instance, like we have a hiring team. Since we're not really like a very large company, we don't have like a dedicated like human resources team that's responsible for that. So we have like a hiring team of like 10 to 11 employees. And like I was actually asked to join like a couple months into work. So it's just kind of like one of those things where working at a small company, you kind of get to do different things that you wouldn't really expect to do.
So we just kind of wanted to touch the areas of SIMM Quick. There are 4 kind of main areas of the firm: operations, investment research, client advisory, and our family office services. AJ and I are going to touch on investment research and client advisory because we both work in them. But we wanted to give you a quick overview of operations and family office services. So operations, really any of these parts, it's kind of like a chair that with 4 legs. If one of them is broken, then the whole thing is going to collapse and you're not going to be able to sit on it. So operations are really important for our business, you know, from compliance, being regulated by the SEC as a registered investment advisor, reporting. We're in the midst of reporting season. So a lot of our clients are expected to be reviewing their reports, and we want everything to be tip-top shape. So a lot of my bosses on the client side work with the reporting team on this. Billing, obviously super important. This is how you make your money. So without that segment, we wouldn't be where we are today. And trading, every trade that we have that goes from the client advisory team goes through operations. So the number of trades that we've actually made this year have surpassed what we've made the entire year of 2019. So that just like gives you a sense of how important operations are in the day-to-day business working with all of us. So we're going to go over the other 2, but family office services. So when I was an intern, the William E. Simon & Sons joined SIMM Quick Advisor to become SIMM Quick Advisors. And that's like the same William E. Simon that was the Treasury of the U.S. And also from the Simon School of Business at the U of R. So a little upstate connection there. But we offer those services mainly for the Simon family and a particular number of clients. I'm not going to really dig deep into that, but pretty much family office services are everything in-house, and it's like a full-scale service.
Yeah, and I would just say like we're going to really focus on the kind of roles that we serve because we can really talk to them a lot better. But like just want to highlight like operations and like the family services side. There's so many so many jobs available in those type of departments. Like so if you're interested in things like compliance or trading and like that kind of stuff, like definitely like look towards like the wealth management industry. There's a lot of different places. You don't have to just go to banks to kind of get those type of jobs.
So specifically the client advisory side, this is what we do for clients. So I broke this up into financial planning, client service, and investments. So financial planning is anything that you could think of that a high net worth individual is going to need. So, you know, that's estate planning, tax planning. They're charitable and they want to give with philanthropy. So how are you going to do that for them? There are a lot of clients that have those needs. But a lot of clients that I deal with is more the client service aspect. So a lot of that fits into financial planning, but a lot of it's also reporting. Some clients have assets outside of us that would like to be reported by us as well. And that kind of fits into the holistic approach of investments. AJ is going to touch on specifically what we invested and how that works. But I just wanted to give you guys a broad overview of the investments on this, the client side. So we look at everything from a holistic approach, meaning that if you have assets outside of us, we want to make sure that we're diversifying you correctly. So if you're a CEO of a business and you have a lot of money tied up into stock options, we want to take that into account and build the best portfolio for you. My team's job is to build portfolios for clients, and AJ is going to get how we approve those portfolios and managers and everything. But typically that's what the client side functions are. As far as who we service, the average client side is client is 10 to 15 million. 2/3 of that are high net worth individuals and families, and 1/3 of that is endowments and foundations. Out of that whole, the client investment knowledge varies a lot. Some clients that we have are managers of the hedge funds that we actually invest in. AJ will talk about our due diligence process a little bit, but specifically, they liked our due diligence process enough that they're now clients. So that's really kind of how my team specifically is. A lot of educated investors that want to know the ins and outs of everything. But there are also some investors who don't even know like what an ETF is. So you'll run into it. It's really client by client, and it's really important to know who you're talking to. Breaking out the client advisory teams. So you have the client advisor, an associate or analyst, and a CSA that makes up a team. Usually you have like a broader team with this. So my broader team has 3 advisors on it, 2 analysts, and I'm the CSA that works on all of the team with the advisors. The advisor's main job is to, manage the team and the relationships, building those portfolios, and making sure all those planning elements are implemented. The associate really is kind of the associate analyst is their like secondhand man, mainly because, they're developing the presentations, they're submitting trades for clients, but they're also making sure the reports are kosher and set. So when you go into that client meeting, there's not going to be a problem. And the CSA role is what I do. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that, but mainly we manage like the day-to-day needs of the client, whatever they have to get done. That's pretty much like my job is to make sure it happens.
Yeah, no, so I'll real briefly just kind of touch on the investment side and kind of what our main responsibilities are before Adam and I go more into detail in our specific roles. But the investment team, so this picture I kind of got at the top here, I took this right out of our pitch book. So we really kind of have 3 things that we focus on the investment side that are really like kind of our main focuses, right? And first off, it's to generate competitive returns for our clients. So I'll kind of walk through like how we go through our due diligence process, but really like the end result of this is we want to create portfolios that are going to generate competitive returns. And I mean this, I think I saw you guys did like a presentation the other day on like absolute and relative benchmarks. And I like that it's so true because everything you do in the world of finance is relative, right? Like we could generate like a 20% return for our clients' portfolios, but if it's in a year where the S&P is up 40% and they want to, outperform the S&P, then they're going to get pretty unhappy really quick. So it's kind of like a balancing act where you don't want to prioritize short-term profits or short-term performance at the expense of, long-term performance. But if you do have multiple years of underperformance, you're going to end up losing clients. So really making sure you're staying competitive in that sense is super important. Also, as equally important is you want to make sure you meet investment objectives. So like every client is really going to have their own goals and objectives that they're hoping to meet. And that's kind of like the client advisor's job is to kind of figure out what those objectives are. And then on the investment side, we're trying to find investments to help the clients reach those objectives. So like when I say like objectives, like that could be something as simple as like wanting to send a kid through college. So you want to save up $200,000 and from 10 years from now to be able to send your kid to 4 years of private school. Or it could be you want to pass on wealth to future generations or give to a charity, whatever it may be, whatever objective it is, like we're trying to build investments and source investments that will help you get to there. And lastly, and probably, just as important is we want to preserve capital. So our clients, like Adam already went through and explained kind of who our typical client is, like 10 to 15 million net worth. And like, so they're already rich. Like they're not coming to us to hope to make them rich. Like they've already worked really hard. They've sold a business, or, maybe they got it inherited, whatever it is. Like they're already rich. They're not looking to us to make them rich. They're looking to us to preserve that capital and really just help them meet those goals. So everything we do, we really want to make sure that we're not going to be losing client capital. So as far as like the responsibilities that go to kind of underpin that, I would say like first and foremost, we're trying to build like a first-class platform of approved managers that the client advisors can choose from to build the portfolios. So I'll go into kind of what I mean by that, but it sounds like you guys kind of have an understanding since you're working like ETFs and mutual funds, but we're really trying to find like investment managers, the top class investment managers that we approve to then have our clients invest to. Also, we're responsible for setting like the firm-wide asset allocation targets. So while like the client advisors are actually building the portfolios, they're building the portfolios based on the guidance that we give based off our like macro forecasts. So we really do that kind of across like the three asset classes I listed there. But that's really just going to be, that's mostly like more like higher up type of responsibility, but it's really going to be based off of what we're reading, how we view the markets, how valuations are, how we see earnings going, et cetera. A lot of the same stuff that you guys would be looking at as well. We also manage internal funds, which I won't dive too into, but it's kind of in the same vein. We're really setting like the asset allocation targets within those internal funds. So our clients can get easy access to the investment managers if they have like extremely high minimums, for instance. And then lastly, this kind of like, I don't know, like maybe like my like primary responsibility is like to make sure that the client advisors are educated on the investment side. So we're kind of like on the investment team, we're kind of like the in-house resident experts on the investments. And Adam kind of already went through all of the different things that client advisors are responsible for, and they just like don't have the time to spend all of their energy and focus all their energy on the investment side. So that's what we're there for. And what we do is we will put together presentations, we'll do meetings like bi-weekly, or like a couple times a month, kind of educating the client advisors on our investments so that they can talk to their clients about it. Sometimes we'll get called in for calls with clients if they have very specific questions, just based on like how their investment acumen, essentially. But that's really like one of our main responsibilities: make sure the client advisors can speak to the investments. And just like my team, real quick, there's I work on a team of 5, so there's a head of research and then just 4 analysts. So pretty small and nimble team. So manager research. So I just want to take a step back quickly. So I know like we keep mentioning like managers and investment manager, et cetera. So I just want to take a step back and kind of explain what that is. So there's like a bunch of different type of like research jobs that you can get in finance. There's equity research job, fixed income research, there's private equity like research, et cetera. So there's like a big difference between like security analysis and like what we do at manager research. So security analysis is like, are those what I explained, doing like company level analysis on tradable securities or not. Like, so private equity, public equity, fixed income, preferreds, doesn't matter. But that is not what we do. That's like what you guys do in SIMM. Like we are not focusing on each individual company. We're focusing instead on the investment manager. And that is all I mean is like, it's a different type of like fund. I don't mean manager as in like a single person, but that's just kind of like the shorthand for like an investment fund. So that could be in the form of like a hedge fund. Like I put here like Axe Capital, if any of you guys watch Billions, like that would be like an example of like a hedge fund that we would allocate to. Bridgewater, Ray Dalio's fund, same thing. There's private equity shops, venture capital, mutual funds, real estate, ETFs, like all the sorts. Those are the different type of like structures that we use to invest in, because they're really like the experts. They're the experts at managing capital, right? So I think like an example would be kind of like if I was looking for somebody to manage my money and I didn't want to buy and sell my own stocks, I'm looking for like a long only equity fund, right? I could maybe look to SIMM. Like that would be an example of like an investment manager. And I would obviously want to like do my diligence on SIMM to make sure that I trust it as an investment manager to manage my capital and grow my wealth. I listed some like examples of some like pretty popular hedge funds that we invest in, and then also some like strategies, but there's like hundreds of strategies, thousands of different firms that really kind of specialize in this. So we're really just looking for like that top decile. Like we really want like the best of the best hedge funds and managers, because there's a lot of crap out there too. And this is just like a super common thing in the wealth management space, just because these like top decile investment managers are typically have very high minimums that you need to meet as far as minimum investments as well as net worth that typical investors like you and me wouldn't be able to and get exposure to.
AJ, before you leave the slide, I just wanted to like say how important that due diligence process and everything is, because really it needs to get so in depth to make everything okay for our clients. During my internship, I was told that one of our clients was, I believe, invested with like Bernie Madoff's fund. And we were told to look into, like the research team looked into the investment and we're looking for him to give them information. And so really he did not provide a lot for the due diligence process. And I believe we recommended that the client stay away from this investment. The client got really upset, fired us, and then presumably lost all their money with Bernie Madoff. But it just goes to show that that due diligence process is so important. Like if we were vetting SIMM, like we look into like all the portfolio managers, like we're going to see all the pictures of you guys at the Burton, all the snake pics and everything. Pretty much anything you name, they're going to look into and make sure that it's a right investment for our client, and that nothing's fishy going on.
So you do background checks, the whole thing.
Yes.
You do like
we have like a background check provider that we hired to do it for us.
You guys know, and maybe you've seen this on the thread or whatever. We rewrote the bylaws, or in the midst of rewriting the bylaws, and one of the things we definitely included is a new contract, so a manager's contract, so that the managers have to abide by certain rules, like coming to class and participating in other programs, but also there's, for lack of a better term, I will call it an ethics provision, whereas if they do, whatever, get arrested or steal or whatever, they get removed from the fund. So
yeah, it's smart to have. And there are provisions like that in like the legal documents for a lot of these hedge funds for exactly that, because like there's like the business risk where you're not even thinking about like the investment itself, but like the business risk of running a fraud or certain claims coming against people. Like when we've run these background checks before, like you find like claims of like sexual assault and like things like that. Like very recently we had an example of that, and like you decide like to either pass or keep moving forward, but extremely important part of the process.
So like, and let me just go one other thing. I mean, so like when you are interviewing for, I mean, do they check this? Do they check that or no? Not just interviewing for, so like to get a job for you guys. I mean, how frequently are background checks done?
Yeah, we run background checks on new employees. It's like we just have a provider who does it for us. I don't think it's as in depth as like the manager ones we do, just because they're usually much more like prevalent people, the ones running them. But yeah, I think that's important no matter what you do. And like nowadays, like with social media and stuff, like every company's looking at like Twitter, so like Facebook, what your history is and stuff like that. Like you see it when like you watch the NFL draft, like you see people pull up tweets from 15 years ago. Like it happens every time. So, but yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so, I think it's super important, and it happens a lot. Like we do it to managers, and they do it on our end too. So kind of like Rich said, like KYC, know your client. We do that all the time with our clients, getting into the managers and the managers themselves. So really everything that you do is so important. Like anything you put on social media, pretty much anything. It's probably going to be found out, and it could really affect your standing as an investment manager, as a client, or as an employee.
Gotcha. All right, thanks. That came up in a board call, not the main board call, but they were very adamant that we needed that ethics provision in there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it didn't matter. Chris or Mike, I mean, all of them were pushing very strongly. So when they rewrote the bylaws, we made sure that got put in.
Nice. So I just want to talk a little bit of like my functions as a CSA. So like I said, it's extremely service oriented, and mainly my job is to service clients as best as I can. So we work with Fidelity, Schwab, and Pershing. That's pretty much where our client assets are. So I coordinate with them a lot. So I'm on the phone with them day to day usually. As a CSA, we're also the head of tax. That's not like what it seems like. We're not doing tax work or anything. We're just posting tax documents to portals for clients because they need to, fill out their taxes with their CPAs. Subscription docs are pretty much just what we're doing for getting the clients into the alternative funds. So a lot of day-to-day is that. Managing transaction lists, make sure that everything is being reported properly for the client advisors so they can give it back to clients. And, a lot of it's like administrative tasks, like if you have wires that need to be done, if a fund is calling capital and you need to have the client sign, there are things that pop up a lot. Recently, I've been doing a lot of class action claims. So thanks to Jim for making me do that my senior year. I don't think we were eligible, but it was a good learning experience for me to having done this a couple times by now. I just wanted to go through a typical day as a CSA. So our team has like critical tasks that we do each day. So we pick 3 and we do them in the morning. If you get them all done, you get a win. If you don't, you get a loss. And you have until the next morning to complete it. So this is just an example. So say today I had to transfer an account from JP Morgan to Fidelity. That's called an ACAT. I need to put client notes into Salesforce, and I need to spend 2 hours of posting tax documents. That's how I think my day is going to go. How my day actually goes at 3 p.m. when everything changes. Say my client advisor says, hey, this client just called me and wants to get into this fund, and the docs are due at 5 p.m. Can you work on it? I need to drop everything and work on those documents. If somebody's sending out a capital call and there's a problem at Pershing, I have to call them to figure it out so the money can go out because the capital call is due today. Things like that happen and pop up. I just kept the ACAT on there because there was the other thing I had to do today. Not all your tasks change day to day, but there are things that pop up. I thank Todd Palmer a lot for making me pivot day to day, and you too, Jim. You just sometimes have to be flexible of what's going on. And if somebody gives you a new thing, for clients as well, we have clients where drop of a hat, you need to be ready to work on whatever you're supposed to, even though it's not like really critical. You need to work on it for them. So moving on.
Yeah. So I'm kind of in the same vein. Like, I don't really have like a typical day to day. Like my days aren't very similar, like day after day. And it's really just kind of dependent on what I'm doing. But for me, like I'm my projects are much more long-term oriented compared to Adam's, which tend to be more immediate. But really, like when I started at the firm, like my primary responsibility was to immediately start being responsible for coverage of my managers off our approved list. So we have something like 60 approved managers on our platform. And I was given around like 15 to 20 that were kind of like my responsibility. So right from there, like you really like have to learn obviously like what your manager's strategies are, kind of like what they do. And you try to like, and we have like different types of, like we have notes and things like that from historical that you can kind of help to learn. And then also talking to the managers themselves is a great tool. But really just try to get caught up essentially to know what I'm supposed to be, responsible for. So past that, there's really kind of like 3, I guess, main elements of my job. So there's the research process when like we're trying to approve a new investment. There's the investment monitoring, and then there's more of just like the macro forecast and that asset allocation I kind of talked about earlier. So on the research process, so the way this typically works is like what I'm doing once we find a manager that we're interested in. And sources come from a variety of ways. They typically come from more of like our networks or our connections. But a lot of it's from like the partners and the more higher ups who've been in the field longer and kind of know the names better. So once we do that, we'll set some sort of meetings with the client. So that's the kind of my responsibility is to schedule the meetings, make sure I build an agenda for what we're going to talk about, really just make sure that we're ready to go for the meetings. And then I'm also responsible for taking notes during the meetings. Once we go from there, once we're comfortable with the manager, keep moving, we obviously have to do like the quantitative work behind it. So we want to make sure like we probably won't even talk to a manager if they're not outperforming benchmarks. Because really, what's the point if they're not in that top decile? We're not going to waste our time kind of speaking to the managers. So for that, there's a lot of modeling behind that. So that's just using Excel. You dump in
real quick. Top decile for how long? Are we looking? What window?
We just think about it like we don't really think about it necessarily as like top decile performance.
Okay.
I think more about it as like top decile like quality. So like maybe like a defensive, like a more defensive oriented fund we might have underperformed in the bull market, like leading up to the last couple of years before things got more choppy. So maybe it wasn't a top decile performer, but if we think the process is sound around it, if we think that they have like a great team and all the kind of intangibles, that's kind of how we think about like that top decile.
It's not purely quantitative.
Exactly. Right. So once you kind of get past just the quantitative aspect, there's really like the operational diligence and more of like that qualitative stuff. So that's when you really dive into process. You make sure that, like a lot of managers could have bought FANG stocks, right? Could have bought Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Google, Netflix 10 years ago, and they would be the best performers over the last decade because of it. But if they don't have like a sound process of being able to find new ideas, if they're just still riding those same winners, then like to us, we don't really know if that's necessarily repeatable, right? So we want to make sure the process is repeatable. We want to make sure that they have like an operational team that like we do, like that can handle like the day-to-day, because like there are issues when like if you don't have like that kind of operational back, that's how you get caught in scams like the Bernie Madoff, for example. Past that, if we continue to move through diligence and we like both the qualitative aspect and it's impressive quantitatively, then we do like more of like the legal doc review. So that's probably one of like the worst parts of my job, but I have to go through like the 200 like ish page like limited partnership agreements with a lot of these funds and just basically make sure I understand kind of what they're legally allowed to do in the fund and that we're comfortable with it. And then we'll do like reference calls, et cetera, to make sure that the character of the fund is kind of what we're looking for as well. And I think like that whole like no a-hole policy Adam mentioned earlier with like clients goes the same way with our managers. Like we're not going to want to invest with people that aren't willing to share information updates with us and things like that, because there's nothing worse than when a manager's performing in a way and you just have no idea why. So having that like open dialogue is super important.
So I'm going to ask a favor of you guys then. So neither the new bylaws have not yet been voted on. They are in the process of being so. So if I have someone send them to you guys, could you take a quick look over and see, you know, like what things we are clearly missing, what things that we should, I mean, like, think of us, I mean, obviously you're not going to invest with us, but that idea is if you were, what things this would, you know, this would be a red flag. We might not invest with you because of this, or this is missing, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Send that over. Glad to take a look.
Actually, AJ and I both kind of, so AJ will look at like the limited partner agreement, and then I would fill out everything for the client. So we see pretty much the whole side of everything that's going on with client documents.
And also just like on the monitoring.
Grace, can you make sure that happens?
Yeah. Send it through for sure. Also, just like on the monitoring real quick, this is more just like the maintaining the work that you did during the research process. So, you know, like maintaining, updating models, et cetera. But that's also doing update calls with the managers. I try to talk to at least somebody from my management team, at least quarterly, just so you can continue to get updates, because these aren't like these companies, these funds that we invest in aren't like publicly traded companies. They don't have to give information. Like, there's not necessarily the same like laws regulating them as like maybe a mutual fund or an ETF. So you really have to kind of count on that dialogue. And then also just answering any kind of questions that might come up, right? If a fund is down in a month and like underperforms, like client advisors are going to ask me why they underperformed, and I have to be able to tell them. And then like I said, like lots of notes. Like my job as an analyst, like you're going to have kind of that gruntier type of work, and yeah, it's just part of the job, but taking a lot of notes so that client advisors can read it and future analysts can read it to kind of learn what's going on with the fund. And then the macro forecast. So this is probably like one of the tougher parts of the job, is actually trying to like time the market in a sense. And we're not trying to like say, all right, clients, buy now, but like take all your money out and then buy now. Like that's bad advice. But what we're trying to do is build portfolios with like tilts or, you know, like I won't get too into it, but like with different types of strategies that we think would perform best. So like to make sense of that, like right now, like our equity positions, like when we're talking about asset allocation, we're market weight equities. And that's in relation to like, like one of the, like a 60-40 portfolio is kind of like how we compare it to. We're market weight equities, but we're very defensively positioned. So we're trying to find very high quality companies that's typically like large cap, tech oriented, like software companies that are able to kind of weather the volatility a little better than maybe like more cyclically based companies. So that's kind of like how we are thinking right now. And that's kind of like the type of asset allocation decisions we would take on. If maybe we want to take more risk, maybe we go into more cyclical sectors, et cetera. But really to do that, you're just always reading. Like I'm always on my downtime, like during work, like I'm always reading as much kind of macro and news, finance news or market news that I can find. That's really the only way to kind of stay on top of that. Just real quick, kind of want to talk about why I think this is like a really good role out of school. So I knew absolutely nothing about manager research when I was still in school. I didn't even really know it was a thing. I know Adam had kind of talked about it from like his experience in his internship, but other than that, like I really didn't know much about it. I just knew, like, I watched Billions. I was like, oh, hedge funds are pretty cool. They get to do like a lot of stuff, and I thought that would be cool to be involved with that. But I really think it's an awesome role coming out of school, especially if you don't know exactly what you want to do, but you are interested in like that investments and the research side. Because like, well, first off, like you get daily exposure to the markets, right? It's like a great opportunity to learn, because in order to know like how your managers are doing, you have to know what's going on in the market. So it gets you paying attention every single day to what's going on in the market, like why it's going that way. And there's just no better way to learn other than doing it every single day and looking at it. Secondly, like I'm a generalist on the team. So a lot of bigger firms might structure their investment teams to have specialists. So instead of me covering hedge funds, private equity, venture capital, real estate, biotech, et cetera, they would have a equity-oriented hedge fund specialist. You would be maybe a fixed income specialist or a venture capitalist specialist. So in my seat being a generalist, I really get broad exposure. And like I said, like I'm not exactly sure like where long-term my career I want to go, but like having these different views is so essential. And two, like I get to talk to the actual managers of these funds who are like billionaires, you know, have made themselves and have really like, they're the best of the best. And like to be able to talk to them and kind of get the takeaways from them and learn why are they interested in companies really helps kind of craft your own market knowledge. I'll also mention like CFA briefly. So like you want a company that'll sponsor your CFA. If you want to do the investing thing, I think that's probably one of the best ways to learn investments is going through the CFA program. So I think we have a scholarship program at school for some of you younger kids, maybe going into your senior year. Don't know if that's still a thing. Either way, the earlier you can kind of get going on it, the better. I studied it my senior year's second semester, got the first jump. I took level 2 last year. I was supposed to take level 3 in June, but unfortunately with this, they kind of had to push that back indefinitely. But getting like a company that is willing to pay for that and kind of support you as you go through is super important because it's pretty expensive, so you don't want to pay for it yourself. The small team environment, I think I love being able to have my voice be heard, like especially on like the macro side, where if you're at a bigger firm, like nobody really knows what they're doing macro forecasting, but to be able to give my input this early on in my career, I think is pretty invaluable too. And then lastly, it's just a very manageable work-life balance. It's not like banking, investment banking hours, like wealth management is kind of just a more relaxed, and I'm not saying like it's like we're lazy or anything, but the work-life balance is important. It's typically, you tend to work like that 40 to 50 hours weeks, and it's very manageable. And I think it's a very good balance.
Could I ask a question? And I don't want to get you off topic, but just one thing that's been really interesting for all these speakers, and since this is, the virus has started, how is that? Have you guys been all working at home? What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, we're super lucky to work in an industry where I think it's actually not that disruptive working from home. Like what is this? They say it's our 8th week now on this. So we kind of got at it pretty early.
And the week of 8/10s was that Wednesday we started work from home.
Yeah, so it's been like almost 2 months now, and it's really gone seamlessly. Like we can do like a lot of things through Zoom. Like having that kind of ability makes it super easy. Like I think we both have meetings every morning with our team where we're face to face, so you don't lose that like human interaction. Maybe Adam can touch more on like the client side, but as far as like with managers, it's the same way. Like I still get the same level of communication that we would normally. You just don't get that face to face. So like for instance, like in our research process, one of our required steps is we have to visit the manager in their office. But given this, we can't do this. So I think I'm pitching next week to approve a fund, and we didn't get to actually go see them. So that's just like one wrinkle. But like right now we're just saying, okay, we'll plan to go do it after the fact. So everything so far has worked pretty seamlessly on my side.
Yeah. On the client side too, like we're really set up well to work from home. Like I have a second screen now here too. Like they were able to like pay for that for us. But we use Microsoft Teams daily, and that's awesome for our communication. But mainly like for our clients, now that everybody's home, it's easier to talk with them. The partners aren't traveling as much, so they're able to like hop on phones with clients now too. We implemented DocuSign a couple years ago, so anybody is able to sign quickly, and you don't have to go through the process of actually getting a wet signature, which is really annoying, especially because people don't have printers or anything now or scanners. So it's nice that managers too, that AJ is dealing with, they're open to accepting DocuSign during these periods. We've actually done pretty well on the client side of like new business during this time as well. So we've made hires too. We've had our first.
Yeah, I think like being prepared like that is really going to set us apart in that sense. So yeah, definitely going to see this transition for sure.
Yeah.
And the last thing, I think this is our last slide here. I figured just since I'm on the hiring team, I could share just a couple quick hiring tips that are really simple and like kind of things that you guys can do that I think will help you in interviews and help you set them apart. I think first and foremost, and I'm sure everybody tells you this, but reach out, like learn as much as you possibly can about the role before you interview. And like the easiest way to do that is reaching out to alumni. And that's why you get like that are already sitting in those roles. Cause I know like I can sit down in an interview and know within the first like 3 minutes how much like the person I'm interviewing actually knows about the role and like how interested they really are. Because if you don't actually understand what you're going to do, it's really hard to actually say like why you think you're a good fit. So really like reach out, like even if like you don't know, like maybe you might know Adam, but you not know me, but you're interested in the research side, like reach out. Doesn't have to be at that company. If there is somebody at that company, all the better, but just to get a better sense, I really think it's like essential. And I've never heard of an alumni just like refusing to talk to a student if they reached out to ask them for some help.
Honestly, that's how we're both here. Like without Les being an alum and like my mom going to school with him, I wouldn't have really known to reach out if he wasn't a Bonnie alum. So I reached out, and that's kind of how we got started in this.
Right. And then same off the back of that, like the more prepared you are, like the more you're going to know and the more you're going to want to know about the role. So like having a lot of questions and good questions really sets candidates apart. It really kind of shows like who cares and who kind of did their work. And if you're like kind of interviewing with multiple people, like I know like Simon Quick, like when I finished interviewed, I think I interviewed like 8 people interviewed me that the first day, like all in a row. So I like ran out of questions maybe under the 4th interview, but you just like repeat the question. Like there's nothing worse than saying, nope, I have no questions. There's nothing I want to know about this role. Like to somebody interviewing you, it's like, you don't know this role well enough to not have any questions. So always do that. It's 2 stupid little things. Always have a pen and paper for notes. That's something I didn't really know when I was going through the process, but like people get really like kind of peeved about that. It makes them think that maybe like you don't care, you're not paying attention. You don't like, I'm not telling you to sit there and like write notes during it. Maybe like have questions already written out. It's just something people like to see. And then also just always send thank you emails. That's just just courteous. Just, people are kind of spending their time to interview. So just send a note, try to make it a little personal if you can. But I think those things really like kind of easy things you can do that kind of set you apart in the interview process. But I know we've kind of gone a little over, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, I have one, guys. So this is mostly for Adam. How has your MBA helped you with your experience at Simon Quick?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have that exposure when you're talking about like credentials for knowing, like, does this guy really know what he's talking about? So having my MBA helped a lot in that sense, but also like I would say the classes that I took in my MBA were so important to like what I'm doing now. Jim's behavioral finance class was probably the best class that I took at Bonaventure, just because I can see like what clients are doing and know like if that's the right thing that they should do or if it's not the right thing that they should do. Some clients are like personally sending us trades to say, hey, can you add more to X during like down days? So it's cool to see like that integrated in how things work on the client side, but it's also like behaviorally, are clients scared? Do they want to take money out? Should they stay invested? What should they do? And I think that like class specifically helped me a lot. But really my MBA year, I thought were some of the best classes that I took. So it really helped me with my job and understanding like you need to be detail oriented and you need to be pretty much on top of everything, because I mean, I'm dealing with clients day to day that own hundreds of millions of dollars. Like we have a couple billionaire clients. You want to make sure everything is like perfect. And I think my MBA year was really kind of hone that into do the best you can, always be nice, and just kind of applying your classes to client scenarios that you just kind of hear about.
Thank you, Adam.
No problem, Matt.
There was a question. Yeah, Rich, go ahead. Okay, I'll unmute you.
That was the biggest mistake you've made, Jim, aside from
Yeah, okay, well, there you go. Thanks for playing.
I'm kidding. So real quick, I'm an alumni from '05. Guys, I threw it in the chat, but you know, I've interviewed people and I've obviously been on a lot of interviews. In your opinion, what do you think is the best question? What do you think has been the best question that a person, a job applicant can ask on an interview to really help put you over the top?
I don't know. I don't know if I can think of like a single question, because I feel like it's so dependent maybe on like what the role you're actually doing. But I think like the questions that impress me are like when they're like specific, like when you can tell that like an applicant's actually really thought through what the role is and thought through kind of like actually what are some things maybe I'm not so certain like I want to be doing. Like, can you expand on like a certain element of the job that like maybe I'm not as familiar with? So I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of blanking on like a specific question, but like I just know like if I'm interviewing somebody for like an analyst on the client side and like they really press on like maybe like just a certain element of the job that like maybe I didn't explain, I think it sets them apart. But I know it's not a great answer, Rich, but
No, I get it. So I'm actually going to give you guys what I always ask on a job interview.
Yeah.
If somebody asks me, I'm always impressed. And my question always is why do you like working here? Right?
Oh,
Because for the students who haven't had full-time jobs yet, any job interview, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to take over, but I think it's really important. Any interview that you go on, while they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing the company and the people you're going to be working with to make sure that you're a good fit. And I think sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, no, finish your thought, Rich.
No, I think really understanding why people show up every day and finding out about the culture is a very important thing to ask. So.
Yeah, Rich, definitely. I'll definitely echo that. And I think that kind of goes with like the whole caring about the role. Like there's so many more things there's like that are important in a job than just what you do. So really like wanting to have that holistic view, like I want to know like, why are you leaving your role? Like, what do you not like about yours that you think our company would be? And like from the interviewee standpoint, I want to know what in my company can give me that. So absolutely, like the culture I think is huge. Like, you know, pay attention to those things like when you're looking for a company too, because you don't want to, just because you might get the role, it might be at a company that you hate the people you work with, you hate the way it's structured. So those are super important things. And that just leads more to the interviewer feeling like, wow, this person actually cares. They actually care about the role and they care about the interview. So definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I like having that question on there always. And when I do it, I kind of ask it like not how do you like your job or like what's your favorite part, because a lot of the same answers are always culture. Like, oh, I like the people. So I ask specifically like, what are your 3 like most favorite things about the role? So you have to break it out. Be like, oh, I like that. I like doing this. I like doing that.
That's follow-on questions too.
Yeah.
Like one thing I freaking hate is when people will have a list of questions. They'll ask a question and then you sit there and you give a well thought out answer and they just go, and then just next question. And you're just like, are you even listening to me? Yeah. Like, you know, engage in conversation. It's not just like a Q&A.
That's it right there, because it is a conversation. And yeah, that's 100% it. It is a conversation. And and I'm sorry, the last, Jim, mute me after this. I'm sorry, but
I'll mute you before it. Don't worry.
I don't know about their job. So I work at Guggenheim and I'm an execution trader, but I can hire anybody to do my job and train them in 6 months. It's, do I want to sit next to the person for 12 hours a day? And can I sit next to the person for 12 hours a day without wanting to strangle them? So you got to have a conversation. You got to be able to hold a conversation and make it look like you're not just some weird kid. You got to make sure you make yourself look normal. So.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And just be yourself, guys, when you're in interviews. Like, nobody's expecting you guys to be experts in the markets or anything like that. Like, you guys are in college, like, nobody would expect that. Just really be yourself, be friendly, like, be honest. Like, and if you get, like, don't try to, like, lie to make yourself sound like you did more or done more, because it's super easy to, like, just poke holes. If, like, because if somebody comes in and they have manage an investment fund. I'm super excited because I manage an investment fund and I like love to talk like how your experience is, what you did. And I can tell right away when somebody's kind of BSing, when they can't give any details on what they actually did. So to me, that's like an immediate turn off. So yeah.
Like imagine if you just put like financial sector in SIMM and like you went a couple days and like don't know what's going on. And someone's like, oh, so what do you think like of the market for banks right now? Like, what do you think is going on with JP Morgan or something? And they have like no idea what you're talking about. It's probably not going to be a good look of putting that on your resume.
Can I add just into this conversation? And it's an area that we don't usually talk about. I think actually Palmer talks about it more than me, but the incredible number of times when, and I can see this because I've done it for both AJ and Adam, I know that, people have contacted me, whether officially, you know, if I'm listed as a reference, or just because, hey, someone from Bonas knows someone from Bonas, and I've had so many people, they end up giving me a call. And I can't stress the importance of me being able to tell a story, tell a conversation other than, well, he's in the class, like, or she's, I mean, you whether it's a leadership position, whether it's, I mean, I can point blank say, and I don't know if AJ knows this or not, but we had a long conversation, and I think I've told you this before, but if I haven't, we had a long conversation with someone, I don't know who, at your firm about you taking out garbage late at night in Dickinson, Texas, when you guys came in, and I swear to God, it was absolute truth. I was the only one up, and there was a heaping pile of garbage. And there was no reason. 99% of the time, people would have just walked by, gone to bed or whatever, and you guys took all the garbage out, so then the next morning, no one would have to do it. And I told that story, and at least they were very impressed. And I said, there's his work ethic. That's his honesty. He had no reason to do that at all. And personally, I don't know if I would have done it. And you did it, and they were very impressed. So stories make a deal. And I think that, you know, if someone sits in a class and does nothing, it just doesn't, I mean, I can't say much. In fact, I will tell you this week, someone, and I won't say who, but someone asked me about a person who was in SIMM this semester. And I said, well, he's in the class. He doesn't do an awful lot. And that was the story I had to tell that person. So, I mean, it happens, and it happens even if you don't, you know, put me as a reference. I'm not saying that. It just happens because it's a small world, and people know people, and they ask, you know, informally off the record, hey, how is this person? It's really important to be a leader so that we have stories. Me, Todd, whoever, whatever faculty member, you have to have stories to tell people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate that, Jim. Always got my back.
It's funny. Tyler was just talking to us about that yesterday. That
really?
Story. Yeah, he was. That was fun.
We live with Tyler too. I don't know if you knew that, Jim.
No.
I'm real.
Tell me, said hi.
Yeah, we'll know. You have any other questions, guys?
Anything else, guys?
Yeah, I have a question. So, what are some things that you guys wish you did or wish you learned inside or out of SIMM in college that might have helped you with your current position? Some stuff that you wish you did or learned.
I'll go first. You want me to go first?
I want you to go first.
I say one thing, like, I wish I was better at Excel. I do a lot of stuff in Excel, and I'm definitely getting better. But like, if I would have started, like, Excel is just one of those things that you get a lot better at it when you, with just repetition and just like doing things as efficiently as possible, even if at the time you first start doing it, it might take longer. And like, I wish I would have started doing like some of the things I do, like in college, like in Jim's classes, in finance classes, like, even though it might've been more of a pain to do it then, just like kind of getting deeper into Excel using like pivot tables, you know, like index match formulas, VLOOKUPs, et cetera, like just doing those type of things, like just getting more comfortable. I wish I would have done that. And like, I wish, like, I think just like for my role specifically, since it's so like in market related oriented, I wish I would have paid attention to the market more and like, just like read more in college. And like, I know it's kind of like generic, but I wish I would have like spent a little more attention like day to day on like what's actually really moving markets. Because it just helps you learn so much, and you can just talk to the market so much better once you do that.
This might not be specific to my job, but I think mine is networking. Like, I thought I had a pretty good network base of like people who I was reaching out to. but like if you compare yourself to like Caitlin is really good at this, and she's really good at doing it like virtually, like on Twitter and things like that. Like as a person on the client side who hopes to be a financial advisor, having all of those network connections is probably something that would be really helpful. Like some of the other things that I can think of that are specific to my job, really Bonaventure teaches you, this isn't like a class or anything that you can teach, but Bonaventure, everybody's really nice. And that's kind of like something that you want to give off to clients. But there are scenarios where you have to be strong and stern with people, because they won't give you what you want. We were transferring over a client from who held shares at this specific like dealer, and the only number you had to call was like a 1-800 like BS number. And really, we were on the phone with them for 2 months, almost calling every single day for a couple hours, and nothing was getting done. And there's a point where you have to say, hey, like, I can't look my boss in the eye and say, I can't get this done or else I'm going to get fired. That wasn't true. I would just tell like the person that, but like, you can't exactly be, you have to be strong in those instances. For me, it was actually funny because I would like put a headset on, walk over to my boss. So like I'm looking at my boss, but on the phone, and say, I can't go back to the person and say, I can't go back to my boss and say that I can't get this done or else he's going to fire me. And I'm looking right at him. So it was like kind of funny in that instance, but really like knowing what you're doing and sounding confident is something really important. But I would just keep doing what you're doing. I was lucky for the internship to expose me to different types of alternative investments. I wish I knew the ins and outs of all of them. I think the energy hedge fund helped me a lot with that, but since that is not in place at SIMM any longer, I would encourage you guys to research like derivatives and different types of options trading and commodities and things of that nature.
I would just say too, maybe even like stepping back on like the technical side of things, just like get as involved in stuff as you possibly can. Like there's just no better time in life to like be super involved and meet as many people as when you're in college and you have all those different clubs. Like if you're not involved in like some of the service stuff, like just do it. It's fun. Like, like if I could go back, I think I would have gotten involved in like bond response and like those type of things like earlier and more frequently. So I think that's probably like, if I could go back, that'd probably be the thing I'd do more.
You still go on trips, just saying.
Yeah, go to the Bahamas, go to play intramurals.
It could be super interesting to see what trips we're allowed to go on this year.
Work still need to get done at some point, but.
Well, I mean, can we go? Like SIMM, that came up the other day. Will SIMM be allowed to go to New York City? Will SIMM be allowed to go to Chicago?
Yeah. That's true.
Oh yeah, we'd love to join you for either of those two. We got a little bit extra PTO, so could do that. Could go to the Bahamas, do whatever. So.
Right.
Hey,
Well,
guys,
thank you,
do you live in Morristown, or where are you guys based out of?
Yeah, we live in Morristown. We're on Phoenix Avenue.
Okay, I was born in Morristown and I grew up in Basking Ridge, right down 287.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
My buddy lives. One of my buddies lives not that far off the Green, just past.
Oh yes,
that's right where we live too.
Yeah, that's where we are.
Just past the Frog.
Yeah. That's really where. Yeah.
And he lives. So you go. Sorry, Jim. You go past the Frog, down the hill a little bit to, and then there's the back way into the high school, and he lives. Like you walk out his front door and you can see the football field from.
That's like 2 minutes away, like walking.
It's funny.
Yeah, really funny.
So.
Yeah. Any other questions anybody has? Like, feel free to, if you guys like don't have questions now, but you do later, like feel free to reach out. You guys know Adam, but you guys can reach out on LinkedIn or anything like that. Always happy to answer questions.
Yeah, please do. Always happy to help.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.